whatever partisan divisions there are around other issues, there don't have to be around this one. The divisions of the moment shouldn't stop us from doing the right thing for the future.
Well, you have failed on your promise of bipartisanship if you don't get Republicans on board with this plan, your first plan passed along party lines.
Look, what I said was I would try to work with my friends on the other side. The Republican group came to see me, and they started off at $600 billion, and that was it. I would have been prepared to compromise. But they didn't. They didn't move an inch.
The group of 10 Republicans that met with President Biden released a statement saying the administration, quote, roundly dismissed their offer and that the process of reconciliation precluded Republican participation. Joining us now, U.S. Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh. What did the Republicans offer? I have to ask because I often don't hear of alternatives. And by the way, welcome to the show. What isn't in this bill do you think Republicans can latch on to?
First of all, thank you for having me this morning. It's great to be here. The first part of your question, I'm not sure exactly what the negotiation was or what the Republicans offered, but there's a lot in this bill that Republicans can support. This bill is really not a Republican or a Democratic bill. This bill is about the American people. It's American Jobs Plan. There's infrastructure money in this bill that almost every city and town that I know of all across America are supportive of. I was on a call with the U.S. Conference of Mayors to talk about this plan, a bipartisan group of mayors, and the Republicans and Democrats are excited about it. I think some of the money on the clean water, there's money in there to remove lead pipes. I think Republicans and Democrats should want to remove lead pipes in our cities and towns all across America. There's money in there for the care economy, people taking care of our older parents and older residents and really taking care of them. There's money in there for that. There's money in there for electric grids and increasing electric grids. There's money in there for job training. When I was going through for my nomination for this job, every single person I spoke to, Democrat and Republican alike, said that job training and workforce development is important to them. There's lots of funding in this plan to help train the workforce of the future here in America. So there's a lot. I mean, I think the president, in the beginning of this segment, he talked about working across the aisle. That's what I intend on doing. That's what I intend on. I think that we still have opportunities here to work with all of our friends in the Congress to see how we can get to some agreement here.
So I know that you're well aware that the pandemic in this past year has really been disproportionately difficult on women. I know you have a record of pushing pay equity back in your old job. What in this Jobs Act addresses the brutal experience women have had over the past year?
Well, what we've seen is in the workforce, 2 million women have been pushed out of the workforce. Last week when the unemployment numbers came in, we saw a little bit of an increase, a positive number, women going back into the workforce. But again, this American Jobs Plan, throughout it, there's opportunities. There's also equity is an important piece of it, about creating opportunities not just for one segment of people, but for all segments of people. And I think that that's really important. We need to get women back into the workforce. And $400 billion into the CARES economy is going to help us with that, making investments in different areas around childcare, and quite honestly, the American Rescue Plan as well, opening schools up and getting young people back into schools. It was very important to the president, very important to this country, and so between both of those plans, we have to be real intentional about getting women back into the workforce, and quite honestly, people of color, women of color, and men of color. We're seeing huge disparities there, so we have work to do. I saw it in my own city, and we see it all across America, and it's something that I know governors and mayors are focused on.
Secretary Walsh, it's Willie Geist. Good to see you this morning. Until a couple of weeks ago, as you said, you were Mayor Marty Walsh of the city of Boston. So you, perhaps better than anyone who's inside these rooms, can speak to what our cities need. So specifically on the question of infrastructure, we know about bridges and roads, but what would this bill mean to the city of Boston, for example? What do you need to turn the corner?
I mean, this bill would be amazing for Boston. I think that, the broadband, we're doing that in the city of Boston now, but broadband in other cities in America is really important. We saw during the pandemic real big gaps in technology and connectivity for families in poor communities and communities of color that quite honestly couldn't get on the Zoom, couldn't get their kids consistently on Zoom. That's a big one. Upgrading the infrastructure for water is a big one. There are 400,000 buildings that will be impacted by this legislation. Once this legislation, we're also talking about the electric grid. We're working. That's something in Boston. Preparing for the future. We have companies in America that will be making electric vehicles, and having a good, strong infrastructure there is important as well. In the job training, I mean, you think about for Boston at least. I'll use Boston example. We have a lot of tech companies moving into the city of Boston, and we want to prepare our young people that are in high school right now and going to college that they can get those jobs, so they're not losing out on another economy like the past. Too many opportunities have come and gone in this country where people weren't able to share it in the prosperity, and having job training and registered apprentice programs, things like that, are really important.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to set up the Fitchburg to Dorchester connection here. Mike Barnacle has a question for you.
Marty, we missed you on opening day, but anyway, Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you this morning. One thing is for certain, America is going to be rebuilt. There's too much that has to be done. You've mentioned a lot of things that have to be done and will be done, or else America will just fade into the near distance. But going forward, the workforce in America, when you joined the union, it was about half the size, or less than half the size, of what it is now. The union membership continues to decrease across this country. What can be done to grow union labor in this country, which would help, I think, to grow and build America?
Well, I think the first thing, Mike, thank you, Michael, for that question. I think the first thing, the labor movement's not a dirty word. The labor movement represents people. The labor movement stands for benefits, stands for good wages, health care, things like that. And I think that President Biden has not been shy about talking about the labor movement, using the word union, using the word collective bargaining, using the word organizing. And people should have the right to organize. If they choose to join a union, they should have the right to join a union. And if you look in this country over the last 50 years, the decline in the labor movement, as far as the numbers of people decline in the labor movement, we've seen a decline in the middle class. And that wealth gap has only continued to grow and grow and grow. And to move forward, President Biden has laid down a very good, aggressive plan here with the American Rescue Plan, the American Jobs Plan, and everything else he's doing. He really is talking about building back better, which means building back the middle class. And this country is in desperate need of a strong middle class. People all across this country are dying to get into the middle class. And that instead of extending unemployment benefits, which we have to do because of the virus, we really need to think about how do we get people into good paying jobs. So I think labor unions are one of those ways of doing that.
All right, we got Jonathan Lemire next.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts, so this whole segment really should have been about the surging Red Sox. But instead, I wanted to ask you about something a little more bleak. News just now, a few moments ago, U.S. jobless claims rose to 744,000, which is an uptick from what we have seen in recent weeks. And if you're hoping you could just speak to still the urgency and how dire the economic outlook is right now for so many Americans who have had trouble finding work, and just how important it would be to get this bill done as soon as possible. The administration has suggested end of summer. Do you feel like we need to accelerate that timetable in light of what's going on?
Well, I'm going to go out of my lane a little bit here. First of all, this job, the American Jobs Plan, is really important for us to get done, and myself and other secretaries and the president and other people are going to be working on it. We also need to continue to get the coronavirus under control. One of the reasons why we're seeing people, I think, not going back to work or being laid off or leaving their job is because they're afraid of their health. So we do have to get people vaccinated. The president came out with a very ambitious goal of vaccinating 100 million people in the first 100 days. He shattered that goal. He raised the bar to 200 million in the first 100 days. We're going to be very close to that goal. We need to also continue to do testing. People need to continue to wear masks. People continue to need to take care of their own personal health. So we're dealing with a downturn in the economy, but it was basically, for the most part, caused by a virus that's still very much with us. So there's kind of two things that we have to do here as we move forward: get the virus under control, get people vaccinated, and number two, which was probably number one, get the American Jobs Plan moving forward.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.